they represented 13.76% of the total enrolled middle school students. In the 1920 school year, these students represent just over 14% of students. And what we find is that every year for the past 5 years, the percent of middle school students enrolled in algebra and geometry has increased. This year, our percent of students participating in middle school algebra 1 and geometry is 16.43%. We'll see on a few slides that we're not quite at our target in algebra 1, but we want to highlight how these numbers compare to the percentage of students enrolled. Also in this data set, we can see great progress being made in the enrollment of students in geometry courses in middle school, as we've nearly doubled this number since the 2018-2019 school year. What this would tell us is that in order to have more students enrolled in geometry, it means that these students took algebra 1 the previous year, as these courses are in a sequence, and students complete algebra 1 before geometry. And again, in a few slides, we'll see how these numbers fare next to our target enrollment. In our next slide, we'll be focusing on the student enrollment for this current school. So this data set illustrates the enrollment this current school year by student group. The first 7 student groups are unduplicated students. However, the last 3 student groups could be duplicated students depending on the student. When compared with our district-wide demographic data, we find an underrepresentation in our Black African American student group and our Hispanic Latino student group. This is not a new finding for us and was reported by the Superintendent's Student Equity and Access Advisory. This next slide illustrates our target enrollment and our actual enrollment. At this time, you can see we've met our target measure of middle school and enrollment in geometry, but we're working toward our target measure of middle school enrollment in algebra 1. We're working with school leadership teams to identify root causes and also possible solutions for this measure. So on our next slide, this is a district comparison slide. You can see that it's mostly blank, and that's because this data is not publicly reported. And it's also not a typical measure for accountability purposes for comparative districts. We always want to learn from our like districts. What we find is that those who do report data on middle school math will typically report completion of a course and not participation. This is just to say that there are other considerations when it comes to our like districts. We do know from our key performance indicators that there are a handful of districts that are outperforming us in the completion of algebra 1 and ninth grade, and we're in communication with those districts to learn. So in terms of challenges, successes, and lessons learned, the challenges that we see are a lack of consistency with the implementation of Tier 1 instruction and also the implementation of MTSS. We've included the lack of consistency with master scheduling and course enrollment guides. However, there are some successes within the tools themselves. Staffing continues to remain a concern, and while staffing challenges are not unique to middle school math, it is worth noting that because these courses are for high school credit, there are additional licensure requirements needed to teach these courses, making it just slightly more difficult to fill these teaching positions. And finally, Dr. Barton referenced vertical alignment strategies earlier as a strategy for this work. We know that vertical alignment is happening informally, but this is something that we see as a challenge. Our successes include the course enrollment guides. While it's a challenge for us as far as consistent implementation, the creation of the guide, which was work that originated from the Superintendent Student Equity and Access Advisory Committee, the need for that course enrollment guide and then having schools utilize that is a success. We've shared how the percentage of enrollment in middle school algebra 1 and geometry shows improvement, and the master schedule monitoring timeline has really been enhanced to include specific benchmarks and action steps for this work. So there are great strides being made and a lot of work being done around these two tools. Our lessons learned include that we need to improve our Tier 1 instruction in middle school, yes, but also in the elementary school years in order to prepare students for the middle school coursework. We need to improve the implementation of MTSS, ensure consistent master scheduling practices, and enhance the use of the course enrollment guides and school reports with very intentional monitoring. That then takes us to a revised theory of action, which is that if we provide high quality tier 1 instruction and tier 2 and tier 3 interventions for students through MTSS and effective master scheduling timelines, course enrollment practices using data and intentional monitoring, Algebra 1 and geometry participation in middle school will improve. And with that, Madam President, with your permission, I'd like to turn it back over to Dr. Barton for our next steps.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Mike Barton for the record. So as a vehicle to get this work done, there's a lot of overlap. You'll see that as we provide updates to the board with graduation, for instance, you'll see that in the next steps, many of them overlap because these are high leverage items that if we do these right as a system, we'll see ultimate growth in the achievement results of our students. The first is engaging leaders and educators in professional learning, robust professional learning, to strengthen that tier 1 instruction across the board, including PLCs, which we've done specific training on that, MTSS, and master scheduling. So you've heard about our efforts to ensure that course enrollment guides are used. Those produce ad hoc reports where schools can see who's missing from a class, but ultimately this year, the master scheduling timeline, being very explicit about that and using that as a system is a key strategy with our next steps. Number 2 on the continuum, engage principals in individualized master scheduling conferences for best fit advanced coursework opportunities. We've done a lot of that work with high school, and we need to look at all of our principals and helping them make those master scheduling decisions that will ultimately help them get to higher level math classes. As a TLC or as a T&L team, we've also determined that a lot of this work starts in elementary school. So we've identified root causes that show a 3rd grade teacher should be able to see through their instruction, what they're teaching, what the ultimate goal is for our students in middle school to be in algebra or geometry by those latter middle school years. And again, the 3rd bullet aligns to that. Implement consistent master scheduling timelines and processes to maximize opportunity. It's a big shift. You know, we have schools that historically master schedules have been sort of an autonomous function, and they have been done in March and they've been done in August. So getting very clear and precise with our schools to help them, frankly, so that when we run those ad hoc reports, use course enrollment guides, that we can ultimately see which students are missing from classes. Maintain summer programming opportunities for students to master skills and concepts. So after we do this master scheduling work, we have a timeline, we ensure that schedules are being done, students are being properly placed. If their RIT score in math shows they can do the mathematics, then they deserve that chance to be in Algebra 1. If they need to make up material, we have summer programming to focus on that. And then ultimately, our team approach is that as we offer these tools to the field, that ultimately, if there are students who are missed, we have an opportunity in even the first 2 weeks of school or even this spring, that if a student has that potential to be in a higher level math class, according to course enrollment guide for a quantitative number, they should be in there. There should be limited excuse for a child not to be in an Algebra 1 class or a geometry class if they show that academic potential. But there's even, and then some. The reality is there still may be students, and we provide this in the course enrollment guide, that may not meet that quantifiable metric, but they may have that will, that fortitude to show that they can be very successful. And we're coaching our field and our counselors and our principals, let that child get into that class and show success and get that higher level curriculum in Algebra 1 and geometry. But Madam President, we're happy to take any questions tonight. We're proud to give this report tonight. There's a lot of work to be done. We know that you've seen this report before from the Council of the Great City Schools, that we are celebrated in many KPIs. This is one where we can learn from other districts who are in fact doing it better than we do. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Barton. Thank you, Dr. Barton and Dr. Martin. Mrs. Martin. Thank you. Thank you for putting it out, manifesting things into the universe. Thank you, Mrs. Martin, for your presentation. Thank you, Dr. Barton. At this time, colleagues, I'd like to give you a moment to ask questions. Trustee Williams.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you so much for putting this on. I really appreciate that you're trying to grab these students at a younger age and also give them that pathway to getting into those higher level courses. Even having that little bit of a leeway 2 to 3 weeks within the first semester, that is really important, because I feel like a lot of students get into trouble sometimes because they're just bored, because they know the coursework. My daughter is one of those students, and sometimes she kind of acts up. She's got a lot of energy because she's bored. So my teachers are always trying to engage her, and she's really good. I love it. But I only had a couple questions back to the comparative district slide. When you said that, so the districts that we approved on this template, those were the ones that are the closest to us in size and nature and funding and things like that. You said there were other districts that you guys are trying to look at with their 9th grade reports. What do those districts look like, I guess, in comparison to ours?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent. Trustee Williams, I think what Ms. Martin was referring to is this report, frankly. So in this performance indicator, it compares us to other districts that are council members. What we're finding is that we're closer to the bottom quartile in students who have completed algebra by the end of 9th grade. The districts that we're trying to learn from include LA Unified, frankly. We don't exactly know, you may recall from this report that all the numbers aren't provided with who is corresponding with which district. But we know that the outliers that are presented in the report, we continue to work with them to see what they're doing. LA Unified one. I know Mrs. Martin is working with our math department to even reach out to these districts that we anticipate are in the upper quartile, and how they're having some numbers of students that are frankly surpassing ours. And so that's what we're trying to do and learn from. But when we have a blank report like that, it's because right now after first semester, they just haven't publicly reported this data because it's not part of the accountability metrics for that individual district or state.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Barton. Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Trustee Williams. Trustee Guzman?
Thank you, Madam President. When you were talking about the introduction in elementary, I went to CT school this week. Yes, it was this week. Yesterday. Okay, good. I'm so glad. All right, sorry, my days are blending. It is legislative session. Okay, so when you spoke about how the 3rd grade teacher should see if they are there's an alignment all the way through to middle school, how would that occur, and how do we look at our students who want to do careers that are mathematically based and just guide them in that direction?
Dr. Martin?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent, Trustee Lubon. I think it's a great question, and I think that the reality is this: the lack of doing vertical alignment meetings systemically has led to the issue where we have hardworking teachers at the elementary level, 3rd grade example, that are trying to get through the curriculum for mathematics for 3rd grade. So seeing beyond that, it's tough when we don't have a structure for them to vertically align and collaborate with their middle school. So that's why that was highlighted as a key next step. We need to ensure a 5th grade teacher at school who has great anchor charts in mathematics, and we know they're teaching the mathematics. How do they ensure that they're producing those students who are ready for algebra and geometry at middle school? We need to set up district structures for that. So I think we've left that strategy, frankly, with vertical alignment to chance. We have pockets of greatness where that's happening in particular feeder alignments. Our next step as a team is to really analyze how we can build a system to make that part of the work, so that 3rd grade teacher who's hardworking, getting the curriculum, knows that the kids need to know this so they are ready for 7th grade.
So may I ask a follow-up question? Thank you. So we know that it might be occurring in our district. Have we identified anything like that within the district?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent, Trustee Guzman. We have some strong leaders that are doing that work. But again, it's not all. We want to get this to all because we know this is a high lever strategy. That's why we put it in the original Focus 2024 plan. And that's why we need to ensure that we take a revisit, look at some additional root causes and really maybe learn from those districts, or not districts, those feeder alignments that are doing it well. So that can be emulated across the board.
So it could be something like teachers teaching teachers how to do it.
Absolutely. And I know the deputies wants to wait.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Larson Mitchell?
Madam President, Trustee Guzman, great question. And as Dr. Barton said, just this week, I met with middle school principals during one of their meetings and shared with them that we're going to be developing SMART goals with them regarding participation in Algebra 1 and geometry. And also there's a 6th grade Math 6 double accelerated class that we created about 2 to 3 years ago that kids in 6th grade really need to get to geometry honors in 8th grade. So our region leadership, they're having mid-cycle goal review conferences with every middle school principal, also elementary and high. And we're going to be having those conversations. How are you working with feeder elementary schools? How are we working with the feeder elementary principals and teachers to make sure there is that vertical alignment? And during that middle school meeting, several principals said, Brenda, I go down to the 4th grade and talk to the teachers. And so I'm going to be meeting in the next couple of weeks with a group of 6 to 8 middle school principals who are doing that really well to get ideas that we can share out this.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great because I would like to see a 3rd grade teacher being able to do that vertical alignment because the students that we saw yesterday were amazing and most of them wanted to do math-based careers. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Trustee Guzman, for covering the vertical alignment for me. Thank you so much. Also, thank you to Dr. Barton and Ms. Martin. Nice to see you again for the presentation. Regarding what you said is not new information as far as with our students of color, African American and Latino students. Are there any particular data points again? And again, this is a constituent question because I know that this was an update for us. Can you identify where we're focusing in on that?
Dr. Martin?
Madam President, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent, Trustee Cavazos. We look at the data on the slide, if I can go back.
Yeah.
To take a look at the reporting, you can see the numbers. We have concerns across the board when you look at our students of color. That's why the Superintendent's Equity Commission that he convened really focused on where are the failure points in the system. Those have been identified as low as pre-K to the transition from 5th to 6th grade. And then this one, Algebra 1 and access to higher level math at middle school, and then the best fit high school. We have a problem here. I think the reality is that the underrepresentation is real, but as Dr. Larson Mitchell mentioned, SMART goal development will focus on participation, enrollment, but I know that some schools will look at their ethnicity overall. Let's say if their ethnicity at their school is 30% African American, how does that match in your Algebra 1 enrollment? Is it 8%? Is it 35%? Which would be a success story. So we are working closely with our principals to align with getting this enrollment participation up. And then the other thing that I'll add, Trustee Cavazos, I know that this metric that's in our Focus 2024 is about, it says participation enrollment. So we as a team also, we think that you need to enroll and participate, but also what's the quality of the Tier 1 instruction?
Yes.
Ensuring that students are successful and being able to pass and show success to even advance to other higher level math when they get to high school. So our approach is very deliberate that the underrepresentation that is observed on this slide is real. And this is one of many metrics that you see as a board that we need to work hard on being specific with SMART goals and action to get more students enrolled.
Thank you, Dr. Martin, and I appreciate you mentioning as far as going all the way back to first grade and all the way across the board and working on that. And also with what Dr. Larson Mitchell had mentioned. So it kind of gave me a perfect segue into just what you did. As far as I was very heartened to hear the part where you had said when you're talking about eligibility, kind of like the whole child approach where you're, it sounds like you're coaching and mentoring teachers with those students that maybe the numbers don't add up, but they seem to have the initiative and really the desire. And I kind of wanted to know if you could kind of elaborate on that a little bit. What does that look like? You know, because I really was very happy to hear that. Dr. Larson Mitchell.
Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Cavazos. Very deliberately in our course enrollment guides, we look at the MAP growth RIT score, winter and spring, and then the SVAC score that comes in usually in July, to make sure kids are enrolled in those courses. But what's also very deliberate in that course enrollment guide is if students don't meet that quantitative score, that we look at their motivation, we look at the grit that they have. And so going down a little bit under that RIT score or that, score to see if there are kids that with extra support that we could push. So we also look at semester grades, semester exam grades, and just a portfolio of factors that include qualitative measures to make sure that all kids who can be successful are served.
Thank you so much, both of you. Like as I said, I'm very heartened by that, this full child approach. And it's just not like looking at the child as a data point, but what else, what is their potential here where they can move ahead? So I thank you both very much. Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, President. Thank you all for the presentation. I just have one quick question. I know one of the challenges that was noted was the lack of consistency with the implementation of tier 1. Do we know why? Have you received feedback or any idea why they're not participating?
Dr. Larson Mitchell.
Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Zamora. So last summer, we rolled out consistent expectations for high quality tier 1 instruction. We provided required professional learning for all principals. And so principals rolled out those expectations this fall. It's all aligned to the Nevada Educator Performance Framework. So tier 1 instruction, including our standards, our assessment, tier 1 instructional materials. That's a huge component of tier 1 that we just started buying, right? So now schools have Envisions at the elementary level, Carnegie at the middle school level, and Amplify Science. So those tier 1 instructional materials are so important because they are aligned to the standards, right? And so what we're seeing are some gaps of learning tasks that students are participating in and engaging in that aren't fully aligned to the full and implied intent of the standards. So we're really encouraging teachers to use those tier 1 instructional materials. Just this week, we also rolled out required professional learning for principals regarding professional learning communities and PLCs, that's the acronym for that. And we hit really hard the planning piece. So we need to make sure that as educators, we're purposely planning what are those learning tasks as a 4th grade team or a 3rd grade team or a 6th grade math team to make sure that those learning tasks are fully aligned to the intended standards. Our educators are working extremely hard and we have lacked systems and structures that provide those materials and those tools. And so we are right now rolling out a consistent framework for PLCs that we've not had before. It's really exciting. So our educators are working extremely hard and we're building systems and structures. And to be honest with you, after the pandemic, we had to, set the foundation again of, teaching face-to-face with our kids and all those scaffolds and differentiated supports that they need. Teaching is complex. It's tough. And we're so appreciative of the work that our educators are doing, but we are seeing gaps and we're there to support them and work alongside them.
Have a follow-up. Have we heard anything about a reason, let's say they've tried it and it hasn't worked out for them? Have they given us any information about that? Like, this didn't work for my school?
Dr. Larson Mitchell.
Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Zamora, great question. What we have heard, especially from our elementary principals and educators, is due to our ESSER funds, we've had money to buy a lot of tier 1 instructional materials for our schools. And so it's a lot of tier 1 materials coming at them at once. So when you think of an elementary school teacher, they have many subjects that they teach in a day. So now I have new curriculum for science. I have new curriculum for math, right? So it's a lot. Just some other things, tier 2 intervention materials that may be new to them. And so a lot of times you just hear that we need more time. We need more time to learn the curriculum. We need more time to work with our kids. So time has been something that we have consistently heard that they need more of.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. Don't see any more members in the queue. I just want to, before we move on from this item, I just want to make sure that I hear my colleagues' concerns with regards to curiosities around tier 1 instruction, the curiosities around systems that we have as a board. I really appreciate the board's focus on student outcomes, and while we are not where we want to be, we are moving forward, and I'm grateful for the work that's happening right now. It's part of the challenges, is that these challenges have existed for a very long time. There is awareness now, and there is movement towards progress. So look forward to continue to celebrate those moments so that we can keep making progress for our students and our district at large. All right, colleagues, at this time, we're going to move on to item. This is not an action item. So we are moving on to item 4.01. There is a presentation that is going to take place. Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry. There's thinking we want more, but no, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Martin. Thank you, Dr. Martin. No more. Oh, it's moving on to public comment on items not listed on the agenda. We're going to begin with individuals who signed up in advance, and that is Mr. Bayless. Then we're going to move on to Ms. Vicky Cardell.
Okay,
Welcome.
give me 1 second here. Forgive me, ladies. You guys are gonna love me. Can you give these to Ruby, please, and one to be submitted for scan? That way we can go along and read together. So this packet that you guys are about to receive is during my due process, Danny Bahara and your school district seem to say that my son's arrest reports didn't exist. My son's bullying reports didn't exist.
Forgive me for interrupting. Can you please state your name for the record?
James Bayless for the record. So you guys said a lot of things didn't exist. In that file, I got a folder on my door Saturday morning that consisted of everything you guys didn't exist. Coming from police reports to bully reports to court minutes that went to proceeding to my case to what the officer said. And you will see also an ethics report there for General Bustamante. You will see the subpoena where they said that stuff didn't exist. So with all this stuff that's transpired, and I have a video from my board, from the board meetings that I take. I just would like to address to you, Madam President, that I viewed a video when I was talking to this board prior to you coming to be our president with Cepeda, and I witnessed a certain trustee lean over to Cepeda and tell her that my son was lying, and I find that highly offensive, considering right there it proves he wasn't. So with all the situation at hand, this is a major problem, because even in your own the deposition from the cop stated they did no investigation. They did nothing they ruined my son's football career. They screwed up his academics. They made my son to look like a terrorist, then they tried to come after me as a terrorist. You can't be hiding files and doing that. And since my topic is law versus rules, you guys expect us to come up here and respect you and follow your rules when you guys aren't even following the laws. So what makes you so special to respect your wishes if you don't even respect the wishes of our government and states? I think that's highly hypocritical, don't you? Have a good day. Oh, God, just for the record, tell Deanna, Ms. Goodman, tell Deanna, thank you for calling Child Services.
Okay.
She let me get it on public record.
Mr. Bayless, thank you, your time is up.
Okay, yeah.
Vicky Fredo.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Vicky Fredo. I'm president of NEA of Southern Nevada, and I'm a reading teacher. When we have something happen with the health trust, I like to let you guys know when there's a problem. And last school year, the health trust defaulted everybody to the dental HMO. There was a glitch in the system, and they let us fix it. And so this year it did it again. Now, some have called PHT, and PHT did say it was a planned thing, that they defaulted everyone to the dental HMO. So what's happening is hundreds of teachers in the district cannot access their dental plan right now. They're put on an HMO that's not with their current dentist. They can't get dental care for themselves. They can't get dental care for their families. I did go back and check through the emails. I did find in September there was an email, but the problem with the THT emails for the educators is it goes to our spam folder. So a lot of people didn't see the email. They didn't go back and check. I feel fortunate that I did go check because I didn't trust it because of the year before. But a lot of people didn't. Teachers are unable to access their dental care at all. I have teachers who have, teeth that need to be fixed right now that can't get them fixed until next year after October. Or it's this year, but next school year. So I just wanted to let you know, people have been trying to call to find out if there's a way. They said there's some way to appeal, but it's not easily available. So I'm thinking maybe THT needs to improve communication to the teachers so that they know when something like this is going to happen and we don't depend on email getting to the right place for them to actually read it. I did find the email, they are there, but it was also in my spam folder. So I just wanted to let you know, I'm seeing a lot of people very stressed about not being able to get dental care for their family, and it's a really big deal to people. And it's one of the reasons why teachers leave the district, because they're struggling to access the medical and dental care that they need for themselves and their family. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. I did notice there was an individual who submitted their yellow card after the item was closed. So I just want to make reference for the notes, didn't make notes that unfortunately, because we opened the item and continued, this item, yellow cards were needed to be submitted before we continued and accepted our first person.
That's no.
And that is standard, and that is a protocol.
That doesn't work for us. Ms. Morales, that doesn't work for us. No, that doesn't work for us. I
Mr.
just
Giancarlo, this is a business meeting. I appreciate your ability to follow decorum and not yell from the audience. All right, moving on. At this time, we've got item 5.01. Upcoming meeting of the Board of Trustees, Thursday, February 23rd at 5 p.m. The meeting will be here in the boardroom. Moving on to item 6, adjournment. Trustee Guzman.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Zamora.
Again.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Guzman, a second by Trustee Zamora. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 7-0. The time is 5:47. Have a good evening.
All the traffic dollars in 2 years. Right here.
Yeah. Let me stop. Yeah, Look around. Okay. I know she heard.